Welcome to Spotlight Reads. The world, it demands emotion, but sometimes the heat just takes even that away. It begins with a telegram, an inconvenience. And right there, with those words, our autopsy begins. Not of a body, you understand, but of a soul that just fails to perform the correct gestures of grief. This is the very first sign that the man we are observing, well, he doesn't seem to know his lines in the great play of society. So we need to be very clear about something right from the start. A man will die on a beach. There will be a gunshot, but that shot it's just a sound. A punctuation mark at the end of a very long, hot sentence. It is not the event we're really here to dissect. No, the true crime of this man, Meursault, is his honesty. It's a terrible, almost indifferent kind of honesty. In a world that pretty much survives on polite lies and carefully scripted feelings. He isn't judged for taking a life. He's judged for his failure to cry on cue. So, our autopsy begins here, in a home for the aged, shimmering under the Algerian sun. The focus isn't on the death itself, but on society's reaction, its confusion at one man's lack of tears. And right there, under the glare of a hostile sky, the absurd is born. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? What is the proper way to grieve? Is there some kind of rule book, a script that we're all handed at birth? Society certainly acts like there is. It demands these specific rituals, certain words, particular expressions. But Meursault, well, he either doesn't know the lines, or maybe, more disturbingly, he just refuses to speak them. Later at his trial, this becomes the prosecution's real evidence. Not evidence of a murder, but evidence of a failed social performance. Just look at this catalog of sins. Each one is a quiet rejection of the script he's supposed to be following. He prioritizes his own physical comfort, some coffee, a cigarette, over the performance of sorrow. He lives in the truth of his own body, the fatigue from the bus ride, the simple pleasure of a swim, instead of the emotional story that society demands he tell. And for the world around him, these simple physical truths are somehow twisted into these unforgivable moral crimes. Now, just observe the logic here for a second. Meursault's way of thinking, it's alien, for sure, but it isn't irrational. He sees the social contract for what it is, a transaction. He thinks, it's my employer's role to offer sympathy. It's my role to receive it. He seems to understand the machine of society, but he just doesn't feel any need to lubricate its gears with false emotion. And to a world built on all those polite lies, this level of honesty, it feels monstrous. The second stage of our autopsy reveals a kind of accomplice to this social crime, the sun. And in this story, the sun isn't just weather. It's not a backdrop. It's a physical character. It's an antagonist that presses down on everything with this crushing, undeniable weight. You have to understand, this heat is more than just a sensation. It's a physical pressure. It's like a heavy blanket that just drains your will, blurs your thoughts into a shimmering haze. It's this overwhelming, silent presence that seems to dictate every action, every feeling, and every lack of feeling. The language Camus uses here, it almost paints the sun as an attacker. The light is like a blade. The air feels like a furnace. During his mother's funeral procession, the sweat is blinding him, blurring the world into this oppressive glare. It's as if the physical world is actively trying to erase his perception. And this brilliant, overwhelming force, it just escalates its attack. It's no longer just an environmental condition. It becomes this active, almost malevolent agent. It presses on his forehead, it thuds in his temples, it pours what he calls a dark befuddlement into him. And right here, the autopsy reveals a profound truth. The universe that Meursault observes is really just a mirror. The sun-drenched landscape is just as indifferent to human suffering as he is. It's beautiful, sure, but it doesn't care. It is inhuman. And this is the physical manifestation of the absurd. A silent, meaningless world just staring back at our desperate search for meaning. And so we arrive at the beach. This is the climax of the physical world's assault on Meursault. The violence that happens here, it's not an act of will or hatred or anger. It's just a reaction. It's like a mechanical failure under the unbearable pressure of the sun. The whole event just unfolds, not as a choice, but like a chain reaction in physics. The heat leads to a blinding light. The light leads to sensory overload, and that overload leads to a purely physical reaction. Notice the specific wording Camus uses. He doesn't write, "I pulled the trigger." He writes, "The trigger gave." It's as if Meursault isn't the agent here at all. He's just the instrument through which the sun's violence is finally expressed. Now, this is absolutely critical. The man on the beach is only ever called the Arab. He has no name, no identity. He's not really a person to be hated, but more like a shimmering obstacle in the blinding light. He's the source of that flash from the knife that finally breaks Meursault's senses. The crime is impersonal, born of disorientation, a fact that, as we'll see, will be utterly and completely ignored by the court. Even in this moment, in the immediate aftermath, Meursault remains this passive observer of his own life. He experiences the gunshots not as his own actions, but as external events that are happening to him. Their fateful raps on the door. It's as if someone else is knocking, and he's simply the one who now has to answer. And now, the autopsy shifts from the outside world to the inside. We move from the hostile sun to the hostile courtroom. And it's here that we discover the trial isn't really about the events on the beach at all. No, it's a stage for a completely different kind of judgment. Here, the absurd logic of the courtroom is just laid bare. The actual crime, the killing of a man, it almost becomes a footnote. The prosecution builds its entire case, its whole argument, on his failure to perform grief. His great callousness is the true offense. He isn't on trial for murder. He's on trial for possessing a soul that doesn't match society's script. These are the words of his own lawyer, pleading with him. The agent of justice is demanding a lie. He's begging Meursault to perform the grief that he does not feel because, you see, the performance is more important than the truth. The courtroom is a theater, and Meursault is the one actor who simply refuses to read his lines. And for that refusal, he must be condemned. So what is the diagnosis for this condition? Why is Meursault's honesty so absolute, so alienating to everyone around him? Well, to understand that, we have to examine the philosophical engine that's driving this entire autopsy, the absurd. So, the absurd isn't the universe itself, and it's not humanity either. It's the clash. It's the confrontation between our desperate, burning need for meaning and the cold, silent, indifferent universe that offers absolutely none. This simple image really contains the entire conflict. On one side, you have us, humanity, desperately shouting our questions into the void. Why are we here? What's the point of all this? And on the other side, there's just nothing. The void doesn't answer. That silence, that stark contradiction between our need for meaning and the universe's refusal to provide it, that is the absurd. And this is Meursault. He isn't a monster. He is what Camus would call the absurd hero. He lives without all the illusions that comfort the rest of us. He doesn't believe in God, or in societal rules that promise order, or in some future that promises meaning. He lives only in the physical truth of the moment. The sun on his skin, the salt on his lips, the trigger giving way. In the end, facing his own death, Meursault doesn't find God. He doesn't find regret. He finds something else entirely. Something that, to society, looks like the ultimate defeat, but is, in fact, a final, profound kind of liberation. And here, at his final moments, the revelation comes. He finally understands. By emptying his heart of hope, which he sees as the ultimate illusion, he becomes free. He opens himself up to the universe and finds that its indifference isn't hostile after all. It's gentle. It's a perfect mirror of his own soul. And for the very first time, he isn't a stranger. He's a brother to the silent world. And in that recognition, he finds a strange and profound peace. Indifference can be terrifying, but sometimes it is the only truth. Subscribe to Face the Abyss. This is Spotlight Reads.
Meursault shows a brutal truth. Society fears not the man who kills, but the one who refuses to perform its emotions. What condemned him wasn't the bullet, but failing to cry, failing to pretend. The heat, the sun, the blinding light became witnesses stronger than the courtroom. In the end, he is punished not for violence, but for honesty. In a world built on scripted feelings, sincerity becomes dangerous. And when you refuse to lie, the world calls it rebellion.